of 12 years. The 12-year-old and the issue of 12 years. Okay, that's we'll find in Matthew chapter 9, 18 through 26, Mark chapter 5, 21 through 43, and Luke 8, 40 through 56. I think what we'll do is read Mark. We'll read the version in Mark. It seems to have the most details in Mark. And when there are various additions or things to add to the situation, we'll grab those from some of the other portions. But I want to read through, let's read through one time Mark 5, 21 through 43, and then we'll go back and talk about some of the key points here in the verses. So you can get Mark chapter 5 and go ahead and read from 21 to 43.
All right, and when Yeshua had passed over again by boat to the other side, a large crowd assembled to him, and he was by the sea. And see, one of the rulers of the congregation came, here by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him strongly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come, lay your hands on her to heal her, and she shall live." And when he went with him, a large crowd was following him, and they were thronging him. And a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered much from many physicians, and spent all that she had, no better, but rather became worse. Having heard about Yeshua, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment, and she said, "If I only touch his garment, I shall be made well." And immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And immediately Yeshua, knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" His top one said to him, "You see the crowd is thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he was looking around to see her who did this. And the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing that what was done to her, came and fell down before him and spoke to him all the truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your belief has healed you. Go in peace and be relieved from your affliction." As he was speaking, they came from the ruler of the congregation house, saying to him, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But having heard the word that was spoken, Yeshua said to the ruler of the congregation, "Do not be afraid, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Kepha and Yaakov and Yohanan, the brother of Yaakov. So they came to the house of the ruler of the congregation and saw a commotion and much weeping and lamenting. And coming in, he said to them, "Why make this commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is sleeping." And they were laughing at him. And when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother of the child and those who were with them and went in where the child was laying. And talking to the child, taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha Cumi, which is translated, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl rose up and was walking, for she was 12 years old. And they were completely astonished. But he ordered them many times that no one should know it, and said that she should be given food to eat.
Okay, very good. All right, so let us go back up here to the top and look over and Mark 5:21, where it says, and when Yeshua had passed over again by boat to the other side, we're back again to Yeshua crisscrossing the Sea of Galilee. If we remember, Yeshua is kind of like he's escaping, he's going away from people. They were crowding him on the one side, and he escapes those people, and he gets on the boat. Well, he's already on the boat because he's talking to the people from the boat. You know, they're there, and he needs to go. He's sleepy, remember? And so he stays on the boat and says, let's go to the other side. They go to the other side. They have the storm, and the storm happens, and he wakes up, and he stops the storm, and they get to the other side. He does the thing with the demon-possessed people, and then those people that was mad about losing their pigs was kind of after him on that side, so then he comes back again. Right? He's just going back and forth, right? So now he's returning back to his side. He was on the other side with the herd of the pigs. He was on the other side. He was dealing with other peoples over there on that side, and now he's coming back over to basically where his hometown is. Well, his newfound hometown, not where he was born, but kind of where his home base really is. And so he goes back over there, and then we lose track really of the time because he's back. So either there was people there waiting for him to get there. Yeah, at some point he coming back. So either they're waiting there for him to come back, or as he returns, the word spreads that he's back, and people begin to come. And so these large crowds, they assemble and they come, and so people have heard now that he is there. And so one of the peoples that we see over here in verse 2 is this particular ruler of a congregation. Comes this Yair person. He comes and he sees Yeshua, and it says that when he sees him, he runs to him and he goes and falls at his feet. And so we see this guy who, inspiration wants us to know that he is a ruler of this congregation. Inspiration wants for us to know that he has a type of authority, this guy does. However, when he sees Yeshua, he goes and he falls at his feet. He begins to worship Messiah. He gives him great honor and respect, to Yeshua, who it is, it's due, right? And so it's interesting that we see kind of the characteristics of the guy who is wanting of Messiah, because Yeshua, we've seen Yeshua don't always give everybody whatever they want. We just saw it. The guy wanted to come. He's like, no, you can't come with us. We got something to do over here that don't got nothing to do with you. And for whatever reason, the scripture don't go into the why of it. We have to kind of try to figure that out. But the point is that everybody who come to Messiah don't get what they want. But there is certain characteristics with the ones who do get what they want, and humility, humbleness is, kind of a characteristic of those who do, in fact, receive what it is that they want. He goes to Yeshua. He cries out. He says to her, "My little daughter," she lies. She's at the point of death. "Come and lay hands on her, and she'll live." And so it's interesting when we think about this guy, right? The daughter, she wasn't dead when he left, but he knew he would be by the time he got back. But if Yeshua would just come and touch her, then she would be able to be made whole. She would be able to live. And so when we look, it's interesting the way this is broken up, because kind of when you look at this verses, when it starts in 21, 22, 23, and even 24, and he went with him. It's kind of connected with this first part. The guy comes, he begs for Yeshua, and Yeshua goes with him. They really could have put, "and he went with them" up with the other part, and then "and a large crowd followed him," kind of is leading into this other section, because we're understanding that Yeshua met the man where this man's this guy's faith level. He met him and dealt with him according to his faith level, because it's interesting to the man. The man, he needs for Yeshua to come and touch his daughter. According to him, it's necessary for Yeshua to come and touch my daughter, and if you can just touch her, she'll be good. So he, it's seemingly doesn't fully understand the fullness of the master's power. He don't necessarily understand that Yeshua can actually, where he's at, just speak life and it be done. But Yeshua don't look at this guy's level of faith and say, "Well, your faith ain't really up to where it should be, so I can't really deal with you." He don't even correct him and say, "Well, I gotta come with you. I could just say it right now." He deals with the guy's level of faith where he's at, and he says, "Yes, I'll come with you." And so he goes, right? And so Yeshua didn't allow this guy's level of faith to be kind of a deterrent for the situation. He didn't treat him any different because he actually had kind of this weakness, in fact, this guy in his faith. Because we've already noticed, we've already looked at where, he comes across the guy who's Roman soldier who says, you don't got to come with me. You could just say it, and I know it's going to be done. He understood the idea of power and leadership, and he understood who Yeshua was and said, you could just give the order, and the order could be done. Now, this guy, he had an understanding of who Yeshua was, but it was incomplete, right? It was a partial kind of a situation, right? And so, again, when you think about this guy, he had to have first heard about the fact that Yeshua was around, that he was back. And so he wasn't just wandering the streets. He couldn't have been. His daughter's like on her deathbed. So he wasn't just wandering the streets and just, oh, there go Yeshua, let me go over there and get him. Somebody told him that Yeshua was back. He stayed with his daughter, knowing that she was dying. He leaves to go find Yeshua, kind of this desperation move. And Yeshua, of course, accepts his request for him to go and help this young girl, again, according to this guy's faith. And it's interesting when we look at this whole situation because it's separate, but it's connected. It's separate, but it's connected. We're talking about all the ways, and I think that it's separate and connected, after we go through. But it's interesting when we look at verse 25. Well, the second part, what I'm calling the second part of 24, when they're dealing with these large crowds, this thronging crowd, right? They're going through this crowd of people, and there's people all over the place. And so there has to have been a crowd there already, because people had to have told the guy that Yeshua was around in order for him to even think about leaving his dying daughter on her deathbed. And so this guy got to get to where the crowd is and then get to where Yeshua is. Like unto this lady in 25, this certain woman, right, who had this flow of blood for 12 years. And so kind of just preliminarily, that word never sounds right, preliminarily. There got to be a correlation between the fact that we got this girl, this 12-year-old girl, and then we got this woman who has this flow of blood for 12 years. Now, it's easy to think about, the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, that's easy.
Well, we don't want to get people there.
Well, we can have the low-hanging fruit, but we want the other stuff too, right? But you could just think about that, right? We'll come back to that. So let's talk about, for a little bit, as inspiration wants us to, this little parenthetical situation that happens in the midst. Like the guy comes, he gets Yeshua's on his way, and then he has this whole interaction that's really a powerful interaction, so much so that it makes it into everyone's accounts. Everybody knows about the account of the lady, and everybody puts the account of the lady in the middle of where it goes. They put it in the middle of the situation with the guy and the 12-year-old daughter. So not only do they remember the situation with the lady, but they remember when it happened, and they remember these specifics of the fact that she had this situation for 12 years. And the guy had this daughter who was 12 years old. Okay, but let's talk about this lady here, because it talks about the fact that she has this flow of blood. So let's go over to Leviticus. Let's go to Leviticus and think about this for a little bit, because Leviticus 15, let's read Leviticus 25, Leviticus 15, verse 25 through 30.
Leviticus 15:25. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, other than at the time of her monthly separation, and when she discharges beyond her usual time of monthly separation, all the days of her unclean discharge shall be as the days of her monthly separation. She is unclean. Any bed on which she lies all the days of her discharge is to her as the bed of her monthly separation, and whatever she sits on is unclean, as the cleanness of her monthly separation, and anyone who touches them is unclean, and shall wash his garments, and shall bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, then she shall count for herself 7 days, and after that she is clean. And on the 8th day, she takes for herself 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and shall bring them to the priest at the door of the tent of appointment. And the priest shall prepare the one as a sin offering and the other as an ascending offering. And the priest shall make atonement for her before Yahweh for the discharge of her uncleanness.
Okay, very good. So when we think about this lady who has this 12-year situation, it fits into this category here, right? Where she has this discharge of blood for many days other than just a regular monthly situation, right? We wasn't talking about her having a thing that happened for a month, right? Or for a week in a month, right? It talks about the fact that she had this situation for years, right? And so she fits into this category over here. But that person who has that situation, whatever status a woman has on her monthly separation, she got that same status, but all the time. And so she's always unclean. And so when we look at her in this situation where we have a situation where Yeshua's looking around like, somebody touching me? Like, she ain't just walking around just, regular. Because if she has any kind of anything about her, she's mindful of the fact that she has a particular status. And then anything that she touches now acquires the status that she has. And so if she's being mindful of other people, she wouldn't be going around trying to make other people or purposefully making other people unclean. And so it's interesting when we think about Leviticus now, when that person becomes clean, where did it say that in 27? Anyone who touches them is unclean. They wash their garments because that person becomes now unclean until evening. And so when you think about from a technical standpoint here, she being unclean, she touched Yeshua's garment. That's what she wanted to do. But it's interesting that she, having an understanding of this, wasn't thinking that when I touch his garments, I'm going to infect Yeshua. She's thinking that if I touch his garment, she's going to infect me with cleanness. She has the idea in her mind that all she got to do is just touch his garment, which under normal circumstances would cause the garment and the person to be unclean, but she has it in her mind that if she in fact touches his garments, then she will become clean. And so it's interesting when we think about this lady, this certain woman who they don't name. She's this certain woman. I want to look at a few things here. I want to go over to Ezekiel. Because there's some interesting things that are hinted at, I think, when we think about this lady's thought process and what she was trying to accomplish and what it even represents. Because it's so interesting when we look at Messiah who's literally going around doing these things, but the things that he's doing actually mean something. That actually, his life is a parable. The life that Yeshua lives is in fact a parable. It's teaching you something by us looking and seeing the literal things that he actually did. But let's look at Ezekiel, because there's some things that we see in Ezekiel and some other passages that help us in understanding this thought that this lady has. Ezekiel 16, let's read 6 through 14. Because when I look at this, actually, it seems almost prophetic to this lady and Yeshua. It's really talking about Israel as a nation. But when you look at this passage, to me, right now, this is talking about that lady prophetically. But go ahead, 6 through 14.
Ezekiel 16 and 6. Then I passed by you and saw you trampled down in your own blood. And I said to you, in your blood, live. And I said to you, in your blood, live. And I let you grow like a plant in the field. And you were grown and are great. And you come in like the finest ornaments. Beasts were formed, your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Again, I passed by you and looked upon you, and I saw that your time was the time of carnal love. And I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. And I swore an oath to you and entered into a covenant with you, and you became mine, declares the Master Yahweh. And I washed you in water, and I washed off your blood, and I anointed you with oil, and I dressed you in embroidered work, and gave you sandals of leather, and I wrapped you in fine linen, and covered you with silver, and I adorned you with ornaments, and I put bracelets on your wrist, and a chain on your neck, and I put a ring on your nose, and earrings in your ears, and a crown adorning on your head. Thus you were adorned with gold and silver, and your dress was fine linen and silk and embroidered cloth. You ate fine flour and honey and oil. You were exceedingly beautiful and became fit for royalty. And your name went out among the nations because of your loveliness, for it was perfect by my splendor, which I have put on you, declares the Master Yahweh.
Okay, very good. Now, just in case you didn't know, this right here is, of course, talking about Israel. And after this, it goes bad for Israel. Real bad. It goes all the way down. But I want to focus on the beginning part, that when the Most High comes and he finds this woman, talking about Israel, who's beat down and in her blood, in her nasty. In her blood, he says it twice. I said to you, in your blood live. And I said to you, in your blood, why did he say it twice? Like, he had to say it twice. It was so nasty, he had to say it twice. But he was so great, right? And so he brings life to this dead thing. It's the nation, but he's describing as a woman, right? And so he takes this woman and removes the filth and adds life, right? He said, I passed by you and looked and saw you, and I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. She was bare, she had no covering. He came and put his skirt over her. I want to look at that verse there, verse 8. Because the whole situation caused us to think about the lady. Because the lady's messed up. Everything about her's messed up. She's in a bad situation. And then here comes Yeshua, who provides for her something that she was never able to get. She spent all her money trying to get it on her own, but she could never do it. And then here comes the Master Yeshua, who sees her. Well, he don't see her, actually. He sees him. But she's in her filth, and she's renewed instantly because of Yeshua. But look at this thing over here, right? The thing that renews the Israel in the picture is, here, look at this. Look at verse 8, where it says, I spread my skirt over you. Skirt. What's that word? You got that? You see it there, kanaf. Kanaf, an edge or extremity. It's a wing. It's a flap. It's a border. Right? It's a corner. It's an end. It's a quarter. It's a skirt. Okay, so a kanaf, which is translated here as skirt, we also see that same word in Psalms 36 and 7. Go to Psalms 36 and verse 7. Psalms 36 and verse 7. The thing that covers the nation that's being exemplified as the lady is the skirt of this man. The covering that covers the nakedness, right? But read Psalms 36 and 7.
How precious is your loving commitment, O Elohim, and the sons of men take refuge in the shadow of your wings.
Okay, so there's refuge to be found in the shadow of your wings. What's that word there, wings? Same word. Oh, wow, it's the same word? Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's look at Numbers, chapter 15, verse 38. Numbers, chapter 15, verse 38. Chapter 15.
Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, make see on the corners of their garments throughout the generations, and put a blue cord on the tzitzit of the corners.
Okay, very good. Corners. What's that word there? Corners. Corners. What's the word there? Corners, the place, the borders, the place where your tassels, your fringes. Kanaf. Same word. So the place where, so when you look at, let's see, Matthew's version, in the scriptures version, he just goes ahead and says that she touched his tzitzit on his garment. The scriptures go ahead and say it. What she's doing is reaching for his borders of his garment, his extremities of his garment, his corners of his garment where the tzitzits were. Okay, and so the hem of his garment, where his tassels, where his fringes were. And so when we think about the Most High and being in the shadow of his wings, same word, when we think about the idea of, like in Ezekiel, where it talks about the skirt that's spreading over, that is covering the nakedness of the nation or Israel, all of these things point to the edges, the borders, the corners of the garment are the place where the thing that reminds us of the commandments of the Most High are. And so there's a correlation between then the thing that this lady is reaching for and, you know, what that thing represents, which is a picture of righteousness or pointing towards righteousness, right? Because when you look at the borders, the hems of your garments, you're looking at this thing that causes you to remember to do the commandment. And so it's interesting when we think about this lady who is in this perpetual state of uncleanness. She hears about Yeshua coming and she comes too. But what is this thing that she's dealing with? Let's read again back in Mark. What's our Mark 5? Let's go down to let's read again 27 through 29.
Having heard about Yeshua, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garments. For she said, if only I touch his garments, I shall be made well. And immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction.
Okay, so it says here in 29 that she had an affliction. Look at that word there, affliction. She got through the crowd of people just like the guy did. They both made it through. Both of these people, now, it's interesting that both of these people make it through the crowd to get what it is that they're asking for. So there's a press through that's synonymous. There's with each other, right? The lady pressed through, the guy pressed through to get through the crowd to get to what they were seeking. The guy needed to talk to Yeshua. The lady, she stole hers. She didn't even ask for hers. She stole it. Huh? She stole her blessing. She didn't ask. She just got it. But I'm happy. I'm happy. But in verse 29, that word there is affliction. Affliction, which is, what's an affliction? A whip. Disease, a plague. It's a plague. Right? And then so the thing that she has is being described as a plague. When Yeshua talks to her in 34, he says, go in peace and be relieved from your affliction, from your plague. Plagues are things that the Most High does. When we look at plagues in the scriptures, they're things that, they're judgments that come from the Most High. Judgments. And so it's interesting now when we think about this lady who comes, who's seeking healing. She goes to doctors and she goes through these normal ways to fix these things that's going on with her, and none of them work. She spends all her earthly possessions on things that you would think would be able to help her to get over these things. But if this thing is a plague from the Most High, ain't nobody fixing it but the Most High. So it don't matter how much money that she spends trying to get this thing fixed. It can't be fixed unless the Most High take it away. But that's what we see though, right? We see over here with Yeshua, he comes and grabs his garment. She grabs it. She, when I looked at this in the Aramaic, what's the Aramaic guy? Lamza. He talks about this idea of, was she touching it? All she had to do is just touch it, but like she grabs it. And so Lambs is a literal guy. So we look and where it says that something happened where strength, power went out from him. And he being a literal guy really describes what she does as like she grabs it and pulls it. Just like how a kid comes up when he wants your attention, he comes up and pulls on your clothes. And so you know that somebody's there. It's not just just like somebody could literally just touch you and you wouldn't know, right? But like he's saying he's literally going, and so someone's pulling on her. He's like, who's pulling on me? And then the disciples is like, what you talking about? We in here with all these people. I don't know how many you people been up in the club. I guess it don't gotta be the club. I guess it could be like just a crowded place. A concert. Oh, thank you. I love that. A concert where there's standing room only. Right? There's no seats. There's people, and everybody's bumping up against everybody. And it's tight confines. You can't know who's touching you because there's so many people around. And so the disciples is like, what you talking about? Like, we're in this place, all these people around. How you supposed to know who's touching you? And then the lady is fearful because she's unclean. And she can't just be around touching everybody because she makes everybody else unclean. So she don't want to be seen, and she's not making a big thing about what she's doing. And so that's why she's kind of getting up there sneaking and trying to touch. But that also helps us to understand Yeshua with his comforting response. Because it says the woman fearing, in 33, the woman's fearing and trembling. Knowing, first of all, what was done to her, she's like, she knows that she's healed. But she also still thinking about from a cultural standpoint, even though she's healed, there's still the time got to go by. And there's still the things that got to go in order for the cleansing to be complete. According to the from a cultural standpoint. And then so Yeshua now comforts her and says, daughter, your faith has healed you. Right? Her faith has healed her. And so again, when you think about this lady now in relation to the guy who he needs Yeshua to go and come with him. She just needs to be acknowledged by Yeshua, and that's good enough. And then Yeshua says, he takes it a step further, your faith has healed you. Right? Your belief, your trust in the power of Yeshua, your persuasion has healed you. In Luke 8, read Luke 8 and 48. Because we can tell that Yeshua is trying to kind of encourage the lady when he's trying to soften the situation and says, daughter. Right? But what's it saying in Luke 8 and 48?
And he said to her, take courage, daughter. The belief has healed you. Go in peace.
He said, take courage. Right? He wants to kind of soften the situation and comfort the lady, in her situation. But why does he call her daughter? I thought that was interesting. Why does he call her daughter? Because Yeshua, he's not an old man. He's a young man. Yeshua's a young man. Somebody in their early 30s, she's a woman. So she really could be like a late teenager and be considered a woman. But still, you're talking about, that is right. So she at least got to be, you're right. So she at least got to be 12 years past 12. Because she had this situation since 12, right? And so she's a young woman herself. And so Yeshua, he ain't really, so if you think about it, if she got to be at least 24 years old. And he's saying daughter. Good.
Oh, but Yeshua is, in the spirit of the Father. So is it Yeshua saying daughter, or is it the Father saying daughter?
I want to look at, I'm addressing exactly what you're talking about. I want to look at Isaiah 9, 6 through 7. Isaiah 9, verse 6 and 7.
Isaiah 9 and 6. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder. And his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and peace there is no end. Upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and sustain it with right ruling and with righteousness. Now on, even forever, the order of Yahweh of hosts does this.
Okay, very good. So there is one who is a son. He's a prince. If there's a prince, there's a king. This one's a son and a prince, and he's a father. So he's a son and a father. Just one. Yeshua talks to his disciples and says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so when you think about that from a standpoint of Messiah doing these acts, really that can only be of the Father, is in fact representing the Father and speaking on behalf of the Father and saying to this lady, daughter, your faith has saved you. It's interesting also when you think about the fact that if we say that the thing that she was dealing with was in fact a plague, was in fact a judgment against her, this thing is kind of doubled here, not only giving her courage and encouraging her in the things that she's currently doing, but it also helps her to understand her present status of daughter, where previously she was probably on the outside, or at least receiving the consequences of one who was on the outside. And so when we look at Yeshua as he speaks to this lady, he comforts her as he heals her in calling her daughter. Okay. And so simultaneously now, as this happens, as he deals with this lady, as soon as this happens, the people from the house come up and is like, to the guy, Yair, man, your daughter, she expired. Don't even bother with the teacher no more because she's already dead. And then now it's necessary for Yeshua to now comfort the guy and say, it's good. Don't be afraid. Just believe. And so when we keep on going down over, we read in 37 where we see for the first time there's this separation of the disciples, where we see kind of one of the first times that we have the three mentioned: Peter, James, and John, Kepha, Yaakov, and Yochanan, where we know that there's 12 disciples, But we also have kind of the three of the 12, right? And so they all go into the place. And when they get in there, they see, I want to go over to, let's see, if we go over to Matthew, I think it's Matthew's version. Yeah, Matthew's version, chapter 9 and verse 23.
And when Yeshua came into the ruler's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making noise, he said to them, "Go back, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd was put outside, he went in and took her by the hand. The little girl arose. And so,
Is that on the verse?
and this report went out into all the land.
Okay, very good. So when they get into the house, in Matthew, it helps us to understand it's not just a bunch of people there, because in Mark, it say there's a commotion and there's weeping. But the commotion, there's more context to the commotion. They had the mourners there ready, knowing that the girl, she was about to go. And you know, one thing about that we find about people in the Eastern culture is that if there was a wedding or if there was a funeral, the people were showing out. For a wedding, it was a whole week of celebration. Right? Funerals, of course, is not necessarily a celebration, but it is a gathering of peoples where they would, you know, together remember the dead. Even if it was just, you know, remembering from just right now. You know, wasn't nobody sitting around for no week or so waiting for a funeral or whatever. It was just right now. They was getting ready to cry out and play their music and sing their songs, and they was going down to the place, and they was going to put her where she was going to be at for the rest. But it was a big thing where it would be people that they knew, and then it would also be like real like professionals that would be there, who was their actual task to kind of lead in the, I don't want to say festivities, in the morning, right? And so Yeshua goes in there. You got to get rid of all these people, man. It's just like, it's y'all get out of here. She ain't dead. She just asleep. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not learning. I was trying to which is so you don't have it in the task.
What?
But in that Mark 5, verse 36, we have verse 36, we have Brother Bob here. He would say, when the Greek it says, keep believing. Where it says, believe, only believe. And so, I was saying that, like, thinking that what he was about to experience was going to make him probably start to doubt.
Oh, based on the reports. Yeah.
And then seeing all the mourners, and then seeing his daughter basically start.
Yeah, because when he left, she was going, but she wasn't gone. He knew that she was going, but when he left, she hadn't gone. And so, yes, you know, to get that news where these people, I don't know, I don't want to hear it. I don't want somebody to come up and be like, your daughter is dead. It seems like harsh. Don't they like to say it?
legal millennium now, basically saying just don't even
I mean,
bother.
they could have just went up and like took his hand and just like, maybe
Shook his-
shook their head or like something. That just, to me, it just seems harsh. Like your daughter's dead. It needed. Don't worry, Yeshua. Don't even worry that the teacher no more. It's over now. It seemed like it was necessary for Yeshua to jump in and be like, don't be afraid. Just have faith. It was necessary for him to encourage the man right there because of the way these people, I don't know who these people were. The people that was at his house. It might have just been, they could have just been some of the mourners.
They was ready to get their feet.
Huh?
They was ready to get their feet.
Yeah, maybe they was.
Could have been some of his flock. He was a ruler.
Yeah, it could have been anybody. But to me, it just seems like it was some insensitivity there where it needed the master to come and kind of smooth it out. Where, not only do you don't have to worry, but keep faith. These people, like, he has to say this because of what they're doing could attack his faith. And so when he goes in there, he got to clear everybody out, all these mourners and these weepers and all of this. And when he does that, it goes and if we go all the way down over to 41, here read 41, just 41.
Back in Mark.
Oh yeah, sorry, back in Mark.
Okay, Mark 5:41. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Cumi, which is translated, little girl, I say to you, arise.
Okay, very good. So he said, rise up. He said, Kwam Yasharala right there. He said, rise up, Talitha, Cumi, which is, it says translated as little girl, I say to you, arise. There is no I say to you. That's just the writers kind of putting emphasis on the authority that the master is saying here. The word literally is little girl, arise. Little girl, stand up. Get up. And so again, it's interesting when you think about Yeshua at this point where he's speaking to those that are dead, where he speaks into death because she died already. He's saying, no, she ain't dead. She just sleep. But I think that's from his perspective. Either that's his perspective or she's not dead and she's like in a coma or something. To them, they may not know the difference between dead or a coma. Because people getting in a coma, their breathing might be so light. It might seem like they're dead. Or she really is dead and that's his perspective and he's speaking into death. And literally speaking life to her and saying, get up. Rise. Stand up. And so it's interesting. Okay. So, and he does what the guy asked for. Because it said taking the child by the hand. He could have just spoken to her at any moment before he even got there. But he meets the guy's request. And I think it's interesting that the scripture put this in here for us to know that the guy just wanted for him to go and lay hands on his daughter, and that's what he did. And he spoke to her. And said for her to get up. And immediately she get up and rose up and was walking. She got up. She was back at it. I don't know if she was sick for a while and she was like, I feel like she was sick for a while. She was a little sickly and, she'd been down for a while, but she gets up and she was walking. Like, why did it give us that? Why did she didn't just get up, but she got up and she was walking? And then Yeshua made sure to tell him, get her something to eat too. Why's that in there? I feel like she was down for a while, maybe not even eating. Like she was wasting away, dying. I don't know why that's there, but to make sure, he said, make sure you give her some food to eat. That's in there. But another thing is, anybody have any thoughts about any of that? Because we're about to go back to the whole 12. Okay, so another thing is that in verse 42, it says that she rose up, she was walking, for she was 12 years old. Why we gotta have that right there? Why is that? Why is it bringing us back? It wants us to understand that she was up, she was walking. Oh, and by the way, she was 12 years old. And they was astonished. And so when we think about again this idea of what is the significance? What's the significance here of having this whole situation of Yeshua performing these miracles with these people of varying faith levels, of this 12-year-old and of this woman who's been plagued with this disease for 12 years. The young girl who soon, if not had already, probably soon, because she's being, the word that is used in the Aramaic, where it says, what he says to her, this Talitha word literally is little girl. So if she was going to be considered a woman, there would have been another word that would have been used right. And so she was somebody who was soon to enter into womanhood. And she's at death's door. And so when we think about this idea as a child, what is it that she could have done as a child? She's probably dealing with the sins of her parents. She's dealing with consequences behind things that are beyond her control. This girl. She's dealing with the sin of the fathers on her. And then you have this woman who's fully grown, who is dealing with her own sin. And so when you have Yeshua who's coming here, he's dealing with the situation. He's dealing really with two things, really. Probably could be three things. Two things, for a matter of fact, transgressions. We think about the lady and whatever her life was that led her into her situation. And iniquity, where you have this thing that's attached to transgressions, but not necessarily that, but the result of sin. And so Yeshua here is dealing with iniquities and transgression and cleansing and healing the result of both. And so we see we're getting like this picture of Messiah where he's showing us that he has this power that only Elohim has. He hints at his connection to Elohim, to the lady, and says, daughter, right? He's raising people from the dead. And then when we think about kind of the implications that lie behind just the why do we have this situation that's dealing with this number 12, with the girl and the lady. And to me, I feel like it's just giving us a picture of the spectrum of what it is that Messiah is able to do and what he's literally doing, where he's showing us that he's dealing with sin on every level, whether it be sin, someone's actual sin, or transgressions, or iniquities. These things that can actually be passed down through generations. He's dealing with them all, and he's transforming and changing all of these things for every person involved. And so when we think about this thing that actually happened, I thought that it was interesting that when we think about this idea here of this 12-year-old and this issue of 12 years, I thought that it was interesting. And then, it just caused me to think about kind of the grander kind of a thing that was hinted at when we look at both of these things together, because inspiration put these stories both together in every instance: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All right, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, or comments?
So would you say it is a low hanging fruit? 12 is the low hanging fruit?
I'm saying the 12 tracks. I think what it represents, I think, is grander than the Most High dealing with Israel, with his people, but dealing with the idea of sin itself from every level. Go ahead. Just speak up a little bit.
I'm thinking 12 is significant for organization, we talk about the 12 tribes, right? But I'm thinking also that it's maybe also related to power. It's being kind of being organized at a certain level. And that's related to where it says the power. And then also, it's just very interesting that, basically at the time that this woman issue of blood started, this little girl was also born.
She was what?
Also born, the little girl was born.
Uh-huh.
At the time that the issue of blood started. And I don't I'm not saying, but it's pretty interesting. This lady was actually just Philip's mother. I'm just saying, I know, I'm just saying that, it was very interesting.
Interesting
She
theory.
was actually her mother.
She would have had she was at the place too.
I know, I took it to
Because
another.
it does say, I don't know if it's another one, but the people that was in the room was the father and the mother and the people that was there. It's in, but everything that you're saying, I love what you're saying. Because whatever the situation it is, if it's just the idea that their lives are connected with each other. Because yes, in fact, the fact that the girl was 12 and her situation was 12 years old, and they both received their healing essentially together, their lives were intertwined with each other. And so from that perspective, their lives are in fact intertwined. But read Luke 8 and 51.
Luke 8:51, and coming into the house, he allowed no one to go in except Peter, Jacob, or James, and John, and the girl's father and mother.
Yeah, so we have the mother there. But absolutely, these people's lives are intertwined with each other, from everlasting, right? And so it was destiny for their paths to cross simultaneously as it did. Because again, you think about the fact that they're in these crowds of people. You got all these people around, and then two people able to make it through. All them people probably wanted something from the master right there. All of them did. And then what's the chances of these two people being able to make it through, being these two people who have these things that bind them together, that happen at the same time, essentially. Yes, very good. So, again, when we look at these things, it's like we see, what's given to us, but we're also able to, I think, glean from the fact that there's these other things that are hinted at that cause us to just think about things from another perspective. Even like in Luke, in 42 and 43, it's like the next verse. Like it talks about the daughter and says how old she is, and then the very next verse it starts talking about the woman and how long her situation. It's like it's emphasis on this time period, and it's just another thing to kind of think about. But to me, I think that ultimately, what it helps us to see is that in the Most High's divine plan, these people both was able to, kind of take part in the glorifying of the Most High when we're able to see his work and his power manifest in both of their lives, where, whatever the case may be of the cause of the girl situation or the lady situation, that because of the power of Yeshua and what he's able to provide for those that have faith in him, because, by the way, the girl, don't know what her faith situation was. It was about the father's faith. Because again, she's a girl, and whatever thing that she's dealing with, she's a child, whatever thing that she's dealing with was beyond her control anyway. And so I'm saying that probably wherever she was at was probably based on the parents, but the relief of that was also based on the faith of the father.
He did. He went if Yeshua would have touched her and she would just say,
Well, I don't know.
other than the fact that
I mean, in this fantasy world, that's possibly could have happened. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. All I know is what actually did happen. And he touched her and he said, "Get up," and she got up and she walked. She got up with strength and she walked and she ate. So she was fully alive. She wasn't like a zombie. Matter of fact, get up, give her some food so she can eat. And so, the power of the master is shown to manifest, and it helps us to be able to further understand who Yeshua is, what he came to do on various levels, and it helps for us to be able to look at this and our faith be strengthened in seeing the manifestation of various levels of faith, by the way, and each one being granted equally.
I want to point out too, like the man in verse Luke 8 and 41, it points out that he was a ruler of the congregation. And so I think Yeshua also likes when people who are in high positions show humility. Because usually rulers don't like to bow down to nobody. It said he fell to his feet. And so I'm sure that got his attention. And so he was presenting himself and being humble right in front of everybody. Because you got the other guy who pulled Yeshua to the side, was like, "Yeah, I like what you do." But he wasn't showing it out on the street like this dude did, you know what I'm saying? And then with the woman, she did it in kind of an opposite manner, where she was but she was kind of being meek about it. She didn't want to make a scene, but she still believed, because for her to do it, you got to believe.
Yeah.
For you to go and attempt something, she said it in her mind. She was like, look, if I can only touch him, I could be healed. So that's part of her faith right there, to even put the effort in. Who puts the effort in and goes for healing to believe that? So I just wanted to get those two contrasting points.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Yeah, and so, kind of just in closing, just think about the fact that, really the thing that we see and can really learn from this whole situation is that, these people had these situations going on in their life, and if they wouldn't have pressed through, they wouldn't even have got what they wanted. Like, it was necessary for them to go and press through. They couldn't just sit where they was at and just if they was going to have these results that they wanted, the only thing that they was going, like, they knew where Yeshua was at. They saw that he was right over there, but they still had to press through and get to where the master was. And he was more than willing and able to do what was necessary for them, but they had to press through. And so, this life that we live is about action. Like, you got to take action. You gotta really, really want for a thing to be in order to have that thing be in your life. I mean, you could say that you want this or that, but what is being done in order to achieve that? These people had action. And in the midst of these crowds, there was however many people was there, so many people was there that the disciples was looking at Yeshua funny whenever he talked about who touched me, as if to say there's all these people around, any one of them really could have touched you. But these two people, in the midst of all of those people, was able to get through because they pushed through. And so the same thing is true for you and I. We have to be like these people, if for nothing else, just to show our seriousness about a situation. Because the most I hear you the first time you say something, but really, how serious are you about the thing that you're asking for? And I think that's the whole idea of, pushing forward and going, putting effort into it. You ask for the Most High's blessing. We can say things all the time, but how much do you really want that thing?
We gotta say in our house is, I can tell what you want by what you do. It's that simple. You can tell you wanted to get in trouble by what you was doing. That's what you did. You might not know it, but people go after things, and they mind or their efforts, they think they want something or it's the wrong way. But there's that's the coming back to how we're supposed to do. But especially when you now know what you do shows what you want.
Yeah.
First.
Actions
Yeah.
got to be connected to words and deeds. We got to be not only hearers, but also doers. Like, we can't just be sayers, but we got to be sayers and doers. There's thoughts and actions that are associated with those things. If I say that I'm believe in Messiah, my life should exemplify it. If I say that I am wanting for the Most High to do this or that in my life, what is it that I can do in order to allow for those things to happen? Because the guy could have said in his mind, "Oh, she was coming back. I wish you could save my daughter." Yeah, who wouldn't even know if they would ever make it there. He left his dying daughter's bedside because he wasn't coming back without the master. And then that's what happened.
Yep.
And so, this is what, it's a picture for our lives as we live this life in Messiah, where, he's going to do and help us in every way. But, we have to have a desire to actually do the things that we say that we want to do. When we take our step, he's gonna carry us all the way. All right. So that being said, for now we'll be done with this here. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue with our words. So for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Worship.